And it's time for Lefties losing it. The fake news media is really hitting new lows, so eager to restart their debunked Russian conspiracy theories that they somehow managed to mix up this man, Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, with this dude, Vladimir Putin. Easy mistake to make if you've lost all reasoning, any semblance of objectivity when you are an activist journalist for MSNBC. Here are some of the corrections.
Last night, The Last Word reported on excerpts of an interview between the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and an Indian TV news network in which she said Trump was good friends with the world leader. Now, we said that world leader was Vladimir Putin, but the full interview was subsequently released, and it showed that Gabbard was referring to Donald Trump and the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi.
Wait. So Tulsi Gabbard mentions that Trump is good friends with the world leader, and they not only just assumed she's talking about Vladimir Putin, but then they report that as if it were fact on television. That's what happened. Let's hear one more correction from MSNBC on that issue.
Last night, we reported on excerpts of an interview between the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and an Indian TV news network, in which she said that Trump was good friends with a world leader. We said that world leader was Vladimir Putin, but the full interview shows that Gabbard was referring to Trump and Indian Prime Minister Modi. We'll clear that up.
Now let's check in with the worst vice presidential candidate we have seen, the uniquely awful Tim Walz, Tampon Tim. Remember him? He had all sorts of delusions of being vice president. Now he has delusions of being a presidential candidate, and he thinks he's a tough guy. Here he responds to media pundits who mocked his lack of masculinity.
How do you fight it? This notion
I think I could kick most of their ass. I do think that if they wanted to. I know I can outrun them, but I don't know if we're going to fall into that place where we want to. Okay, we challenge you to a WWE fight here, type of thing.
Good luck with that, Tim. I think Judge Janine has you covered. Here, Tampon explains that Republican men are scared of his masculinity.
I think some of us scare them. I think I scare them a little bit why they spend so much time on it. No, I'm serious, because I can fix a truck. They know I'm not.
But when he's not threatening to kick ass or brag about his truck, he is cheering on the damage caused to an American manufacturer that employs tens of thousands of Americans on good wages, a company that chooses to manufacture cars in the US. Tim Walz is happy that this company is being attacked and its stock price is falling. This is disqualifying, folks, even more disqualifying than putting tampons in boys' bathrooms.
That little stock app, I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So.
To The View now, and here Whoopi Goldberg scares the already disturbingly dumb audience by suggesting that Donald Trump will deport American citizens.
Keep your eyes open, y'all, because if they can just come up and take somebody because they've made a decision that you're supposed to be that person, any one of us could find ourselves being deported to some country.
Don't give them any ideas, girl.
Don't give them any ideas, girl. You heard Anna Navarro say that. And talking about Anna, look how miserable she is here as fellow CNN panelist states some facts and figures about Trump's popularity.
NBC News on Meet the Press, they reported their polling found the highest level of enthusiasm in the country going in the right direction since 2004. 20 years. Yes, stating facts and figures can be triggering for the left. Watch here as another panelist on CNN claims that the data is all wrong because people in the street said so.
You do know what you're saying is incorrect. I don't care about the polling. The American, I don't care what NBC is saying. I can talk to the people on the streets. Are you on the streets? Are you talking to people?
Now to lefty John Stewart. Here's some wise words of advice for the Democrats whose approval rating has plummeted to under 30%.
You're at 27%. You've got to get Trump to lose 8 points of popularity just for you to get to the point where you're 13 points below him. Your approval is only 7 points above, where it turns red and goes into low power mode.
Yep, things must be grim if even John Stewart is mocking the Democrats.
Maybe you're not a numbers learner. Maybe a visual demonstration of where you're here. Let me meet you where you live. All right, here we go. This is not. I'm going to do this. This is 48% approval. This is them. This is you. This is you. 27%. This is them. Oh, I see. They're much higher. Yes, they're much higher.
Now, former First Lady Michelle Obama is often spoken about as a future presidential candidate. The Democrats are so desperate for any popular figure to take over the party, but how popular is she? Michelle Obama has launched a new advice podcast, IMO, to much fanfare. It's a podcast co-hosted with her brother, Craig Robinson.
You know, speaking at leadership conferences, things you do as a coach, you realize that what we have, even in our lack of resources, you know, in our household growing up.
Just scintillating stuff, folks. And the audience numbers, I've got to say, are not great. The latest edition on YouTube features Hollywood star Seth Rogen, but it's just got 6,500 views in 13 hours. Not even that, 6,400. Now, I don't want to brag about my Lefties video, but the one from just last night's program is already sitting on 894,000 in 16 hours. Well over 1 million by now, but then again, Lefties losing it is pretty awesome. Joining me now is journalist and author Batya Ungar-Sargon. Batya, what did you make of Michelle Obama's latest project? Is it relatable? Is it likeable? Useful?
So I wrote a column about it for Unheard, and then somebody wrote to me in the comments, "Oh, you're the person who listened to the podcast." You're absolutely right that it does not seem to have found an audience. And the reason for that is because the same thing that ails the Democratic Party in general ails this podcast. It's for and by rich women. And it's so amazing that this has not seeped in, that the Democrats have such a problem with men and such a problem with the working class. And yet Michelle Obama's podcast, her guests are all other unbelievably wealthy people like her. And I mean, they just don't have the problems that the average American needs advice on, because these people are all gazillionaires. And what's amazing and really offensive about this to me, Rita, is that Michelle Obama grew up working class. She grew up in a Black working class household, and we know that Black Americans struggle to make it into the middle class. Even Black men who are born wealthy, more often than not, find their way into the lower classes and end up poor. This is absolutely devastating. And Michelle Obama and her brother Craig Robinson have the answers to how to solve this problem. They grew up working class and they are both millionaires. And yet, Rita, they are gatekeeping the secrets that so many Americans are desperate to hear. And instead, they sit around with their wealthy friends and talk about things like when to end a friendship. And I find that a little bit offensive.
Absolutely. And the Democrats have become, as one very astute judge said, a party for weak men and miserable women. And it does seem to be what's ruining the party right now and making it unelectable. And when it comes to Michelle Obama, do you see her as a future politician, perhaps even a presidential candidate? She's always spoken about in those terms, her popularity, her appeal to female voters, but I wonder whether all of that is wildly overstated.
I think it is. First of all, reportedly, she hates politics. And so I would be very surprised if she found her way into politics on a personal level. But also, Rita, she seems very consumed by grievance culture. Her speech at the DNC this year was really shocking. I mean, it was about the myth of the persistence of racism and how hard it is to be a person of color in America. She's worth $70 million. I mean, she's sort of the proof positive that this is sort of nonsense. And I feel that that is very out of touch with where most Americans are at. And I'm not just talking about white Americans. I think Black Americans are sort of sick of this message as well, which is why you saw a lot of movement towards the GOP. 25% of Black men voted for Donald Trump, and his approval ratings right now with Black Americans are very, very high. So I think she's quite out of step with where the nation is, although the Democratic Party, again, does not seem to have realized that.
Now, Batya, you were on Bill Maher's program and your clips went viral very quickly, millions and millions of views. And I've got to say, you managed to make Bill look a little bit silly on his own program.
We're approaching 2 months in. I mean, you must have a feeling in your gut, look me in the eye and tell me you don't, that this is really going badly and I shouldn't have thrown my lot in with this team.
Oh, no, I feel the opposite.
All right. Tell me why.
I'm so sorry, Bill.
No, tell me why.
No, I feel so proud of, I mean, I was never a Republican or a conservative. I was a leftist, and I am still a leftist. I'm just a MAGA leftist now because...
That makes no sense.
Batya, tell me how you are, why you're so happy with how things are going, and explain to my audience, what is a MAGA leftist?
I'm happy because I feel like Donald Trump wakes up every morning and thinks, how can I make America better? How can I keep a campaign promise that I made? How can I do exactly what I promised my supporters I was going to do? We've never, ever, ever seen efficiency like this. We've never, ever, ever seen a president who truly wants to deliver exactly what he promised to his supporters and to the country overall. Trump throughout the campaign was saying our success will be our retribution. And that's what we're experiencing right now. This is everything I hoped for and more. And I could not have believed that he would be so successful. So, you know, there was so much that I wanted to answer, Bill. I knew that I only had a few minutes. A MAGA lefty is somebody who has realized that the MAGA tent is big and that this president wants to represent all Americans. At a more fundamental level, Donald Trump is anti-war, he's pro-worker, he believes in a protectionist economy, and he's a social moderate. This was the left's agenda for 100 years. And so I don't see why I shouldn't get to still call myself a lefty just because Donald Trump lifted the best parts of the Democrats' agenda out from under them. They abandoned labor, and he decided to represent labor. They embraced war, and he decided to steal their anti-war platform. They went totally kooky crazy on the lefty stuff, and he said, well, you know what? Looks like the moderate middle is just there for the taking. I'm going to take it. That's where I'm at, and I feel very represented and very happy.
And if more people just looked at the policies and the policy outcomes, the objectives of those policies, they would also identify as you do. But so many are transfixed by Trump and hating Trump that they don't actually look at what the agenda is. And you're right, he has taken a lot of what were traditionally leftist policies, and that is part of Make America Great Again, all about America first. It's all about protecting American workers, starting up American manufacturing again and reinvigorating that. And it's got to say, how divorced from reality are these lefties, even sensible ones like Bill Maher, who think Trump voters are somehow upset by what they're seeing, and the polls are showing something entirely different to that. And even the polls that are traditionally favouring the Democrats are showing their approval rating under 30%. Batya, I mean, this is just dire straits for the Democrats to have an approval rating in the 20s. How are they going to come back from that?
It's truly amazing. If you think of this split screen, on the one hand, you have a president who is representing the working class, elevating every hardworking American. He's getting us out of wars and bringing peace. And he's bringing common sense, moderate social policy back to the table. And what do the Democrats represent? Well, they represent keeping Tren de Agua here in America. They represent opposition to deporting rapists who are not citizens. They represent opposition to deporting Hamas supporters who are not citizens. They represent supporting trans men, trans women in women's locker rooms and women's sports, and they represent protecting the fraud and abuse of our government. So, of course, their brand is in the toilet. Trump took everything that was good about them, and instead of saying, oh, wow, a president who's actually going to do leftist things, they decided to embrace everything that is just insane and crazy. And here's the thing, Rita, they turned on their own values and their own voters rather than admit that Donald Trump had a point. And this is truly unforgivable stuff.
Absolutely, and they're being punished for it. Now let's speak quickly about the Russian-Ukraine war. Earlier today, Presidents Trump and Zelensky had an hour-long phone call, and afterwards Zelensky said he thinks lasting peace is achievable this year, and he was full of praise for President Donald Trump. What a difference a couple of weeks makes, Batya. Tell me about how that is being perceived in the US.
I think people feel relieved. President Trump had to speak harshly to Zelensky when he was in the Oval Office. Most Americans approved of what they saw there. We want this war to end. We're finished, supporting foreign wars that have nothing to do with us. We hate the bloodshed. And I think a lot of us feel that we hate that our support was a big function of prolonging this bloodshed. I think President Trump feels that this is a proxy war in which the two superpowers do not want to be at war anymore. And he's desperate to bring this to a close. And I think he's doing a really good job. He has figured out how to play Putin, and he's figured out how to move Zelensky. And so I think that hopefully, please God, we will see movement very, very soon. I think he is very good at manipulating both Putin and our European allies. I think, we've seen European allies coming into the Oval Office and being very deferential. And as an American, you just love to see it. So I'm really hopeful that with God's help, we'll see an end to this very soon.
And he's been very good in getting the Europeans to spend more on their own defence and to start doing some of the heavy lifting, which has been another objective. Before you go, I want to play you just a small part of a speech J.D. Vance gave. He gave a masterclass on the failures of globalization and how, in the end, it hurts advanced economies.
There were two conceits that our leadership class had when it came to globalization. The first is assuming that we can separate the making of things from the design of things. The idea of globalization was that rich countries would move further up the value chain while the poor countries made the simpler things. Whether we were offshoring factories to cheap labor economies or importing cheap labor through our immigration system, cheap labor became the drug of Western economies. And I'd say that if you look in nearly every country from Canada to the UK that imported large amounts of cheap labor, you've seen productivity stagnate.
And the failures of globalisation are so much behind the Trump phenomenon. And that's, again, something people fail to understand, that people who worked manufacturing jobs used to make decent money, used to be able to provide for their family, have economic security. And we've seen that destroyed in so many Western nations, and it's been deliberate, Batya.
Absolutely. JD's speech is incredible, very much worth watching in full. He really makes a compelling argument there that the cost that we paid for shipping all of these good jobs overseas and then importing a serf caste in here to do the jobs that remained, working class jobs that remained, that the cost to that was not just the dispossession of the American working class, it was also a cost in terms of innovation and in terms of productivity, in terms of what Americans would have innovated if they were still doing these jobs. And that is truly, truly criminal. The disinheritance of America's working class while the elites got rich off of cheap labor. It is the root of the Trump phenomenon. For working class people, immigration and the economy are two sides of the same coin. And this is something that's very hard for elites to understand. And JD laid it out beautifully.
He really is quite exceptional, I've got to say. I was a bit surprised when Donald Trump selected him, but if he's not the 48th president of the United States, I'm going to shave my head live on this show. Batya, Ungar-Sargon, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you so much, Rita. God bless.
Let's bring in host of Sarah Gonzalez Unfiltered on Blaze TV, and she's also the VP of Texas Family Project. Sarah, there are some strange happenings in the great state of Texas, including at a church in Dallas. I'm going to play these clips. I've played them before. This one is of a drag queen joking about sacrificing Trump voters.
By the way, if any of y'all voted for Trump, please don't tell us. No, don't tell us. Or do, and do y'all sacrifice? Do y'all do that?
That's the Cathedral of Hope in Dallas, a United Church of Christ congregation. And Sarah, it's not just drag queens giving sermons, drag kings are preaching also.
Performing gender as a daily task, I would argue, is a learned cultural trait to which we have all been exposed. As understandings of drag have changed throughout history, perhaps drag today could be defined as that which threatens the already fragile and arbitrarily constructed framework for gender performance that is necessary to maintain power dynamics.
Sarah, what is going on in Texas? Right now, I'm pretty happy to have been born in Arkansas.
Yeah, I bet you are, Rita. I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, what's going on in Texas is just absolutely reprehensible. Through our work with Texas Family Project, we actually uncovered this particular event over at Cathedral of Hope in Dallas, Texas, where, get this, they had that drag king that you showed give this sermon, which really, I don't recall any scripture being uttered during the sermon. It was solely about sexual and gender identity, which I'm like, I don't remember seeing this in the Bible anywhere. But on top of that, what you played was the after party, which was held at a gay bar down the street, where they had a fundraiser for the church. So the church was raising money off of these drag queens performing and making sick jokes about wanting to kill Trump supporters. It's just very, very, I would say, Rita, the opposite of what Christians are supposed to be. And yet it is happening. This is the largest LGBTQ church in the world, they say, here in Dallas, Texas.
I wouldn't have thought that would be happening in Texas. Let's go to church now in Atlanta and listen to this preacher, Jamal Bryant. He's from an Atlanta mega church, massive congregation, and is indulging in some shamelessly racist abuse. I mean, this is just gross.
I feel bad for them in the White House who are in there tap dancing for massa, wearing bow ties, shinning and grinding, laughing like nothing is funny. But I ain't afraid of the spooks that sat at the door. These runaway slaves hiding in the White House gonna throw my picture up thinking that I'm gonna be afraid.
He is mocking their Trump supporters who happen to be people of colour, happen to be black, and using the most disgusting racial put-downs imaginable. How does he get away with this? If any white preacher made a comment like that, I mean, there would be front-page news.
Yeah, you're right, Rita. And I mean, on top of that, you want to talk about, he mentioned runaway slaves. Well, I don't know what runaway slaves he's referring to. Perhaps he's referring to the runaway slaves who are leaving the Democrat plantation in droves, because that's what we're seeing with blacks, with people of color, with, Hispanics. We are seeing these people because they're so tired of this divisive rhetoric. They're so tired of identity politics here in the state. That is why back in November, I'm sure everyone recalls, we had a mandate in this country. Overwhelmingly, we voted, record numbers of minorities voted for President Trump's agenda and vision. And it didn't include this divisive rhetoric that we hear from the Democrats. So they're getting away with it for now. You see this pastor, this preacher, who I believe has sort of a questionable history in and of itself, but they're getting away with it for now, Rita, but they are getting away with it less and less as time goes on. People are tired of it. They're done.
Well, if you watch The Real Housewives of Potomac, you will know all about Jamal Bryant. His ex was Giselle, and you hear about all the affairs, all the love children. So, yeah, I don't know how he's a man of God, but here we are. Now, let's talk about The View. Chuck Schumer was on The View, and I don't know if these Democrats get extra stupid when they appear on that show, but I was shocked to hear him mock Americans who want to see a cut in red tape, Americans who want to see their taxes cut.
You know what their attitude is? I made my money all by myself. How dare your government take my money from me? I don't want to pay taxes. Or I built my company with my bare hands.
Sarah, that's not a winning message, is it? I mean, how lost are the Democrats?
They're completely and utterly lost. And on top of that, it's not just Chuck Schumer. You have numerous lawmakers in the Democrat Party who are coming out, and their message, their strategy, they think they're doubling down on the dumb rhetoric that lost them the election. They think that if they just go out and complain to Americans that we might pay less in taxes, that that's somehow going to get Democrats back on board. But the reality of the situation is that the majority of Americans are very excited about what's happening with Doge. Who can look an American taxpayer in the eye, knowing how much we are taxed to death and knowing that our ancestors fought a war for far less? Who can look an American taxpayer in the eye and say, actually, we hate it that Doge is rooting out waste, fraud, corruption. We want you guys to pay more in taxes. And you'll notice there, Rita, he also said your government. He didn't say our government. This is our government. These people work for us. And they seem to forget that over there in the Democrat Party, even though they were just reminded in November with the shellacking that they got. It's just really reprehensible what they're saying.
And yet, despite that unhinged position, he's not left enough for many Democrats. There's calls to have him removed because he's not ideological enough, he's not left enough, he's not combative enough. I mean, are the Democrats in danger of becoming completely radicalised by the squad types, by the AOCs and Rashida Tlaib's types who are just going to see the party veer even further left?
Yes, and we've seen the writing on the wall for several years now. And I mean, case in point, look who they just ran for president of the United States after Joe Biden dropped out. They had an opportunity to run someone who not only maybe had some sort of a moderate position on things, but also could coherently speak. And they chose to do neither of those things and run radical Kamala Harris. You look at the way that they're plastering Jasmine Crockett on television as often as they are. And I say to them, please keep plastering Jasmine Crockett's face all over mainstream media at any time of day or night. The best thing that could ever happen to the Republican Party is for them to continue parading these yahoos around, spreading a terrible message that will not resonate with most Americans, because now they have to deal with the fact that they have created these little radicals. They've created the squad. They've created the radicals that follow them. They've made all of these, this subsector of Americans just completely radicalized over the climate, completely radicalized over Donald Trump and more. And they've made their bed, and now they get to lie in it. And we'll see how that works out for them.
Well, I heard Don Lemon argue this week that AOC was the next leader of the Democrats. He was advocating for that position. So if that's where they are, good luck to them, because it's going to be an electoral bloodbath come 2028. Yeah. Now, I played footage just earlier of another apology correction on MSNBC. They managed to mix up Modi with Putin. They're so eager to spread propaganda about Trump and Russia that they got the Indian Prime Minister mixed up with Vladimir Putin. How is the US media coping during Donald Trump's second term? They didn't do too well in the first term. They were just in hysteria mode for 4 solid years. Are they a little bit more balanced now, a little bit more restrained?
You know, it's funny because you sort of see two different ways of handling it happening here in the media. You see the CNN route, which is the guys at the top have decided, okay, maybe we need to redirect, maybe we need to course correct. You also see that with the Washington Post. You have Jeff Bezos, who is saying, oh, hold on, now we need to hire some conservative writers. Now, the problem with that is that I think that these people are too far gone. They've already lost the credibility. People are not going to all of a sudden trust the Washington Post or CNN again. But then you have the MSNBCs of the world who don't seem to be course correcting at all. I mean, you have Rachel Maddow, MSNBC host here, who was complaining about Joy Reid, who got her show canceled and Rachel Maddow actually said to the entire country that Joy Reid was fired because she was Black. She was a Black woman. And so you have these two disconnects where there are certain media companies who have chosen to take the path of maybe trying to reconstruct their, the vision of where their future lies. And then there is the path of MSNBC. But the beautiful part about all of this, Rita, is that in all of these forms, they are losing viewers by the second. They are having to cut off staff. They are having to fire their hosts. And you know what? I've got to say, it could not happen to a more deserving group of people. These are people who have lied to the American public for decades on purpose, either by omission or straight to Americans' faces. They lied about the Russia dossier. They lied about so much of Donald Trump's first presidency. They covered for Joe Biden during his presidency when he was half dead. We had a Weekend at Bernie's dead president, and they covered for him. And now all of a sudden they want to come out and write books, tell all books about how Joe Biden wasn't competent when he was in the White House. These people are a scourge on America. And I am so glad that the chickens are finally coming home to roost when it comes to American journalists. And I use that very loosely in air quotes because I don't think they are anything of the sort.
You are 100% correct, particularly when I saw Jake Tapper, of all people, putting out a book about the cover-up during Biden's presidency. He was complicit in that cover-up. He would attack those who suggested that the president had some form of cognitive decline. There's just so many instances of him behaving in that manner on camera, and then to try to memory hole that with this book. Outrageous antics. But Sarah Gonzalez, we're used to that from the left. That's why we talk about it. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.